I'm like, okay, where is God?
Where is God?
That was a question that came up often during the course of my business. So we'll answer it. But at that point in time, I didn't know where he was.
So you told on a Wednesday that you're being released on a Friday with the rest of the company because they've been sold. You have a month's worth of savings. You're in your 20s. Yet another tech job that isn't quite panning out for you. And so you find out on Wednesday, but you just told me there's more to this story.
So at that time, I was in a great church in Nashville, and I was actually one on the music team, I guess, or the worship team, if you will. And we had schedules where different people would kind of lead the congregation in worship on any given service night. And we had Wednesday night Bible study, which is not, it's a Bible study, but it wasn't a big music night.
Right.
And so I was on schedule that Wednesday to be the worship leader at church that night.
Excellent.
So earlier in the day, they called us into the conference room, said, Friday's your last day. I'm stunned. I am embarrassed, even though it was no fault of my own. I wasn't fired for cause or anything like that, but I felt like a failure. And I didn't know, I thought, my whole career path that I had charted because I felt like that's what God wanted me to do. And now it looked like, Phillip, you missed it. You
Right.
messed up. So I was really confused. I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. I was confused. I was scared, all in one. I did not call anybody. I was embarrassed too, but I rode around in my car until church time, just driving around, just like my mind just whirling.
Dazed.
So, yeah, anyone, I really empathize with anyone who has lost a job for any reason. Quite honestly, that probably prevented me from letting people go in my business later on. I probably held on too long for some people and should have let them go earlier because of that trauma that I went through. And I didn't want to put that on them.
Of course.
So I drove around the city until church time. I don't even remember if I remembered that I was the worship leader, but I was. And when I got there, I realized I'm the worship leader. It was the last week of June. So the week before the big July 4th holiday. And there was hardly anybody there. Pastor was
Of
gone
course.
on vacation. And unbeknownst to me, someone had messed up the schedule apparently because there were no musicians there.
Oh, oh,
That is the only time that I can think of in my life that I have, and I've done a lot of worship leading through the years, that I've ever been to a service and there were no musicians there and there were supposed to be musicians.
right.
And so I got there, I'm like, thank God, because I am in no condition to lead. That's the last thing I want to think about is getting up and singing. I did not want to sing. I didn't want to pray. I didn't want to do anything. I was mad. I was humiliated, embarrassed, all of the above. So I got there. I'm like, no musicians? Okay, great. The associate pastor was ministering that night. So I went to the associate pastor. I said, hey, something's happened. Somebody messed up the schedule. There are no musicians here. Literally nobody that can play any instrument. I'm on the schedule to lead the worship. So we probably just won't have it tonight, right? He goes, absolutely not. You will get up there. You will lead. You can do this without music. And the whole time I'm looking at him thinking, I want to tell you that I am a basket case. And the last thing I want to do, you're even lucky I'm here, but I didn't say anything. I just said, okay, I'll do my best. And I really can't tell you how devastated I was. It was a devastating feeling. And, maybe I probably made it bigger than it was, but to me, it was big. And I understand that when people go through that, it is a big traumatic thing.
Yes.
I mean, that's your
Yes.
livelihood. And
Right.
so back in those days, this is old school, but we used to have the song books. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
They used to have song books in your
Yes,
church. I
sir.
think that's the same
Yeah.
one we had. And normally I would already have some songs in my mind that we're going to do.
Of course.
I had nothing on my mind. So I literally opened the book and the song it came up to was I've Anchored in Jesus. And every time I tell this story, I get emotional. It makes me so mad. I get emotional every time I tell this story because it was so real. I'm like, okay, we'll do this song. I didn't feel anything. We'll do this song. And I get up there with a little handful of people in the congregation, no music. Let's all sing. And I'm dying
Right.
inside because I'm thinking God has forsaken me.
Yes.
I've asked him for direction for my career and the choices that I've made, things that I've turned down. I turned it down because I felt like God said no. And so I did what God wanted me to do. And I'm like, okay, where is God?
Where is God?
That was a question that came up often during the course of my business. So we'll answer it. But at that point in time, I didn't know where he was. And I'm
Right.
up there leading in his church. So I began to do this song, and I don't even know if anybody else was singing, but the first line of that says, upon life's boundless ocean, mighty billows roll. I fix my hope in Jesus, blessed anchor of my soul.
Right.
And I get to the chorus, I've anchored in Jesus, the storms of life I'll brave. I've anchored in Jesus. I'll fear no wind or wave. I've anchored in Jesus, for he has power to save. I've anchored to the rock of ages.
Ages.
I've led a lot of worship over the years. I've never had an experience like that. It was no music, just me and a few stragglers, but some I can't explain it and I can't there were not words, but something inside of me, that word was coming to me and
Mm.
letting me know that God saw me. I didn't
Right.
know where I was going to go from there, but God saw me
Right.
and everything was going to be okay. Did not know how, but I got that confidence from that. There was no doubt about it that I was supposed to lead worship that night. And
Right.
when I opened that book, God let it fall to that page. And
Right.
that song put faith in me that
Mm.
helped me. Now, there were 4 weeks that went by that nothing happened.
You didn't know if you were anchored in Jesus.
I was anchored. I didn't know if I was in Jesus, but I was definitely had an anchor. I felt like I had an anchor on my career. But I will tell you that what kind of came into my soul that night helped me for those 4 weeks until I got that phone call that we talked about in episode 1, our last
Right.
episode, which changed everything.
Right.
That night, just simple obedience and just doing what I was asked to do. I felt nothing. I didn't feel anything spiritual. I had not prayed. I was in no condition
You-
to lead. And God put it in my heart that you're going through a storm. No doubt about it. You are going through a storm, buddy,
Right.
but you'll fear no wind or wave. Wish I'd learned that lesson completely on that day because it would save me a lot of heartache down the road.
Of
Because there were
course.
many storms in business, in developing the business and growing the business and dealing with people and dealing with clients, and so many storms. And so many times I think maybe as Christians, we're really Pollyannish and say, you know what, if you pray and if you're committed and consecrated to the Lord, things are just going to work out. And I think uh, maybe I had that attitude too as a young 20-something-year-old. But then when storms of life come and storms in business and whatever it is, and you think, what did I do wrong? That's immediately what we think. What did I do wrong to deserve this? And
Right.
God never promised us that there would be no storms, but like the words of that song, I fear no wind or wave because you are with me. He is with you through the storm. And so God that night let me know that I was not walking alone. I didn't get an answer. I didn't get a revelation of what, like I told you in our last episode, I thought maybe one of the tech corridors, I'm going to go and get a big time tech job
Right.
at a big company. Didn't happen.
Hmm.
So another thing that happened that night And then two other times within the next week, I heard three different individuals in three different settings relate the story about the three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
My.
Within 1 week, I heard that three times. Now, what is it about that story? They determined in their heart they were not going to, they were going to stay true to the God of Israel. They were not going to bow. Okay, so they were consecrated. They were doing what they were brought up to, what they were taught to do. And what happened? A bad result. They say, oh,
Definitely.
you guys are going, for those that don't know the story, these three Hebrew boys in the Old Testament, and the king said, bow to my image. They said, we're not going to bow. We don't bow to any man-made God. We bow to God, Jehovah of Israel. He says, okay, if you don't bow, we're going to put you into the fiery furnace. Okay. If I'm writing the book, I'm saying, okay, they say we're not going to bow. And, you know, the fiery furnace mysteriously blows up and they're delivered. That's not
Correct.
what happened. They got thrown into the fiery furnace. And the thing that struck me as I heard that three times within 1 week, I heard it three different times, was they told the king, our God's able to deliver us out of that. But if he doesn't, I'd never thought about that. But what if God doesn't? Because God always does. That was my
Right.
theology. God always does what's best
Otherwise,
for
it's
me.
yeah. Otherwise, it's not a testimony. We got to have a testimony of
Exactly.
God's greatness.
I think what I picked up from that is I don't know how this is going to end up. I got 4 weeks of funds left, and I don't know what's going to happen. But I know whom I serve and whom I'm following. And if he gives me a job in Research Triangle Park or Silicon Valley or Dallas or DC or whatever it is, fine, great. But if he doesn't, and I have to go to work at fast food joint, that's the mentality that I got that week,
Mm.
is that I don't know how this is going to work out. He may do it this way, but he may not, and that's okay. It's okay to live with not knowing for sure. And you say, well, that's not faith. No, that's perfect faith. That's perfect faith when you put one foot in front of the other, not knowing exactly where you're going, but knowing that somebody's leading you that has your best interest at heart.
Right.
And so I left that service that night with the realization that I'm going through a storm, but he's with me. And then I heard three different people talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they said, our God can deliver us from this fiery furnace, but if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to keep praying. I'm going to keep believing, keep reading my Bible, keep going to church. I'm going to keep sending out resumes. I'm going to keep doing what I know that I can do. Is it going to be enough? I don't know, but I trust the process that God is bringing me through because he told me he would be with me in the storm. And so that was what I held on to for 4 weeks as I watched my bank account dwindle, knowing the next mortgage payment had to come out. I got calls for interviews, and then I got calls saying, no, we hired somebody else. Didn't happen the way I thought it should happen or would happen. But God
Right.
prepared me for that. And I just kept remembering, but if he doesn't, we still are going to trust him. But if he doesn't, I'm still going to believe. I'm still going to walk with him.
Right.
And so it was on the fourth week when I was going to run out of funds that I got that phone call, and it was scary. I did not know that I was starting a business. I thought I was just getting a paycheck to to pay the next mortgage. That was the start of my business.
Wow.
But it
Wow.
started with that song, I've anchored in Jesus. So I guess the moral of the story, if you will, is in any kind of vocational pursuit, whether you're working for another company, you're considering a job offer, or you're launching out and trying to start your own business or whatnot, don't discount seeking God's guidance, even if you don't feel an electric pulse running down your spine. Someone comes and says, I've got a word for you. You should do this and this. That's probably not going to happen. It may. God bless you if it happens. It didn't happen to me, but it was just an abiding knowledge that my faith was well placed in the anchor of my soul. And
Mm.
that's what held me. That's what held me long enough to get me to the next point that God wanted me.
The total dazed, confused, numb of that Wednesday night. I would have guessed because you went to Vanderbilt and stuff, you felt like a little bit of like a golden boy.
I'm entitled
Yeah.
to the best jobs. Absolutely. And that's why I was, I think, angry
Mm-hmm.
because I graduated top of my class in undergrad school, top of my class in high school. It is what it is. But what that made me feel like as a young 20 something year old, it was a little cocky. People should be begging me to come work for them.
Of course.
It was
Yeah.
humbling.
And we don't often sit with that. And we want to flush that out of our lives as quickly as possible.
No doubt about it.
We don't spend a lot of time on the Joseph in prison story. We
Right.
speed to the glorious end. Or I thought you'd mentioned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You know, in the fire was the fourth man.
That's right.
That was
Wasn't
his
it?
anchor.
It's a good point.
But they didn't know that when they were being tossed
They were going
into
to
the fire.
die.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure
That's
they thought the deliverance was going to come before they were thrown in the fire. And
right.
as they got near the door, I'm thinking, okay, this is it. And many
Right.
times that's where I thought I was. I'm going to lose my house.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose prestige. At one point, I was in it's kind of a round table of entrepreneurs where we would get together and just kind of support group. What are you facing?
Yeah.
What are you facing? Whatever. I remember one gentleman in that support group, and it really struck me. And he was struggling in his business. The facilitator was asking, what is the thing that you fear the most? And he says, the loss of my reputation. He had a reputation. He had done a lot of things for some prominent companies in the area, and things were falling off. He had lost some contracts. And losing face is probably the scariest thing that I faced at that point, many other times throughout the progression of my business. I always want to, and I'm a very positive person. I always want to present an image of like, I've got it together. I've got this. I'm confident. I can do it. That's the demeanor I want to always project. And I
Of
try to
course.
do that. But so many times, even while projecting that demeanor, I'm on the inside, I'm like, I'm going to fall on my face. I'm going to make a complete fool of myself. You got to deal with that. So there's a dichotomy in my mind of feelings where I'm always projecting, I want to project confidence. I can handle this, self assurance, self sufficiency. I got this. And when I would go to present to clients or potential employers, that's what I want to project. That's who I am. That's who I feel like I am. But at the same time, I'm projecting that and feeling that there's another part of me that is thinking, you're about to fall flat on your face, Philip Hampton.
Mm. Yeah.
And then you're going to be a mockery and nobody's going to hire you. Nobody's going to want you. And people are going to say, look what he squandered. I'm going to be honest and, don't like to share this because it's a vulnerable part
Of
of
course.
who I am. But that is something I dealt with multiple times throughout the process of building my business, of the exterior image of all is well, confident we can do this. I can take this mountain. And inside, I'm thinking, I'm gonna, I'm gonna die on this side of the mountain,
Mm.
never reach the top, and
Right.
I'm gonna look like a stupid fool.
No.
So I don't know if self-help gurus will tell you that, but that's what happens.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
real life. And we've all had where is God moments where we're dying or dead inside. And on the outside, you're leading songs. Let's worship the God that I no longer have faith in, who's letting me down. We've all been, have some version of that story.
You said the where is God moment. So yeah, that was my first where is God moment. And so that was that Wednesday night, where is God? And he kind of let me know, okay, I'm here. And then he left the picture for 4 weeks. Where was God during that 4 weeks?
That's that's
Yeah,
right.
maybe
That's
he's
right.
working on one of your problems.
My life was probably a mess, and he was spending too much
Yeah,
time
you can wait. You've got 4 weeks of fun, so I'll be back.
a mess over here in St. Louis I got to deal with. Yeah.
So it was that one night reassurance. I'm going to be with you through the storm, and then see you later.
Right.
I mean, that's what I
Right.
felt like.
That's legit. That's real life.
Yeah.
That's real life. Definitely. Thank you. Like that's the opposite part of the glorious story.
Huh.
And thank you for sharing that. I think we're going to stop here. Whether you are a trusting God or whether you are a Christian, whatever the case, there's always that faith and the fear that you're constantly dealing with. And there's always the private story to go with the public story.
So
You illustrated that brilliantly. And I
where
appreciate
is
you sharing your
God?
heart.
He's always there somewhere. He will show up.
Yes. Thank you
See-
so much.
See you next time.
Bet.